Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rocket Live. And we're finally done experimenting. If everybody's hung in there for the last couple times, I've gone live to basically test drive the LinkedIn Live stream here and get going. And I am finally here to do a real show with my very first guest, REV Ciancio, and from Management. And Rev and I have actually known each other for many moons, man. It's been quite a while, and we met way back in the day when we were both very much involved in the music industry. I was involved more from the video production side of things, and Rev was much more involved in artist promotion, management, marketing. And since then, our two paths have grown, and we've back and intersected here. So I really wanted to get him on because I follow Rev a lot on LinkedIn. He posts a lot of really great content. He is a hospitality marketing executive, a burger expert, and
burger tasting.
Yes, I'm sorry, burger tasting expert. And he's got a lot of great content he's been providing, and I wanted to get him on and have a really great conversation. So feel free to join in on the chat while we're going here. We'll take questions, comments, whatever you want. We throw them up on screen. Rev can answer whatever he feels like answering. And that's it, man. And away we go. So, Rev, how are you, my friend? Welcome to the show.
I'm great, buddy. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I agree with Socrates here. Those are some nice tunes. That first one, I'm like, is this like a Van Halen outtake? Why don't I know this song? So that was good. And the second one, I was like, is this an Avenged Sevenfold outtake? Anyway, songs are great. I'm super happy to be here. It's great to reconnect with you, Chris. I'm super excited. Let's actually just start with something controversial, right?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Let's not back around. Okay, where does cheese belong on a hamburger?
Oh, that is super controversial. I mean, man, I was born and raised. I love my cheese right on top because a lot of times I'll melt cheese and I put something right in between. Like I'll take the pickles and the onions on top and then put the cheese on top and let it all kind of melt in so it's all together and then eat it. So I'm an on the top of the burger, but sometimes stuff in between.
So you're a blanketer. We call that a blanketer. Somebody who blankets over the other, right?
Yeah.
Like you're putting out the fire.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, Chris, but your answer is incorrect. Cheese belongs on the bottom. Okay. And I'll tell you, there's two very important reasons why cheese should go underneath the patty. Number one, if you're ordering cheese on the burger, it's because you want to taste cheese. So you should put it closer to your tongue. Okay. It makes the hamburger more pleasing. Otherwise, you would just order a hamburger, right? You wouldn't get a cheeseburger.
Right.
And number two, and this is what's really important, is putting cheese underneath the patty creates a seal, right? And it seals the juices of the burger and it protects bun integrity. Okay. Super. So I just want to make sure that we start the conversation off here on the right foot, and we're developing. I want to offer value right from the beginning of the conversation.
Well, I appreciate that value, man. You just totally schooled me, and now I'm like excited to have my next burger because I'm totally gonna do that. Like we're having a bunch of people over on Sunday for the Giants, since we normally will do a tailgate, and it's the first game coming up. That's a 1:00 game. That's home, and we normally would all go out and just do a big thing in the parking lot. So, but this year it's different. So we're actually tailgating it in my parking lot and then watching the Giants, and there's a ton of food. So that's I'm definitely doing that this weekend.
Cheese on bottom. Now, that rule does not apply when you're using a spread or a sauce.
Okay.
So if you're rocking the Whiz, or if you're like my friends in Wisconsin and you're rocking the Merc cheddar spread, back up on top.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that is awesome. Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. And since we're on the burger kick, and so what's your favorite burger? Like, do you have a favorite spot, or do you have a certain way that you like to make your patty? Do you season it? Do you stuff it? Like, what is your burger?
So I have room in my life for all hamburgers, right? I kind of love. I don't really like lean one way or another. Obviously, fresh over frozen. But if I'm making a burger at home, I'm generally trying to keep it pretty simple, right? Okay. I'm usually just cheese or cheese and grilled onions or shallots, and that's kind of it. That's not to say that I don't like, all that other crazy stuff you can do to a burger. I do. But if I'm making it at home, I'm keeping it simple. I'm trying to get it as close to like a roadside burger as I possibly can. Once in a while, if I have really good bacon, and I mean good bacon, I'll do like a Boston leaf lettuce, bacon, blue cheese at home.
That's good. I love the Boston lettuce on top of a burger.
But only with bacon and blue cheese. And
nice.
Good,
yeah,
like bacon,
Yeah,
bacon.
like good, like thick cut. I like that too. That's awesome. So I mean, I could literally, we could just talk about burgers for the rest of this time, and I'm okay with that. But I know that you're involved in a lot of stuff, and I'd love for everybody out there to get a taste of what you're doing, like what your services are, what your business is all about, and what you've been doing. Because once again, I know, especially during this time, where there's been a lot of I guess the volatility in the hospitality industry, but you've been out there, man. I see you putting out a lot of content and really spearheading and really lending a hand to help out. So I'd love for everybody to hear about what you're doing.
Sure, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yes, I've had a burger in Utah. We'll answer Socrates. I'm sorry if I botched your name there. I can't remember the place. Lucky 13s, I think it was called, or Lucky something. It was over on the other side of the tracks. I had some burger that was like this big with 1,000 things on it. And there was dirty needles like on the floor of the restaurant. And I took a picture of it, and I have the picture somewhere. So that was my burger experience in Utah. Now back to your question, Chris. So I am a hospitality marketing consultant, and I basically have two types of clients. So I help restaurants with their acquisition and retention marketing, like how do they get more customers and how do they keep more customers. And I do that through digital marketing, social media, and incredible software. My other type of client is incredible software companies that help restaurants to be successful in their business. So, all right, got it. Socrates, got it.
Like Socrates.
I don't ever want. Look, my last name's Ciancio. People botch it all the time. That's why we just go with REV. But anyway, I basically help restaurants with their marketing, and then I help hospitality tech companies to help those restaurants. So I'm sort of bridging the gap between the two. And I have a number of different clients at different verticals and different places, but essentially that's it. A lot of restaurants and independent, mom and pop shops to growing small businesses, like they don't have a large staff. They're trying to figure out how to scale. They're trying to figure out how to automate as much as possible. They're probably more focused on the operations than they are the marketing, meaning how do I staff the place? How do I cook? What's on my menu? The toilet broke again. My delivery's late. Like that's their day. Right.
Yeah.
And so they don't have time to think about how, Facebook advertising can help them reach new customers, or how to convert people who would normally order from Seamless and DoorDash to order from them instead. Or, what's a good Instagram strategy to, retain current customers. That's where I come in. Right. You come in, you bring me, and I help bring in systems. I help bring in strategies. I help bring in technology. I help bring in ways that you can, basically surprise and delight more of your customers. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it sounds great, man. And I mean, from what you were just describing too, and we're all small business owners, so we got it. It's like you are doing a lot of things, but I think it always comes down to the old thing, like working, in your business as opposed to on your business. And I think that is, it's a thing that happens to all of us. You sometimes you're so busy working in, and then you forget that you got to keep working on the business, and you got to put the hat on back and forth. But it sounds like that's something where you can come in and really help them to start to begin to work on the business.
Yeah, I used to own a bar in New York City, and I had a bunch of partners. And what we kind of figured out in the end is that we were actually really bad at the operations piece, which is important. And I realized I was like really good at the marketing and branding piece, and it sort of changed my day. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to go do that. Like I want to go do more branding and marketing for hospitality and location-based businesses, because I get it and I like it and I've been there and I know the struggle. And we sold that place for a loss. I always kind of joke that some people pay for an MBA and I got like a street MBA. I spent the same money, but I learned just as much.
Yeah.
So I know the struggle. I've been there, and I realized that most people that open a restaurant or bar or hospitality-based business, they're not marketing people. They're not branding people. They're either a chef who have like the creative, or they come from an operations background. And, listen, running a restaurant is no different than selling software, right? Or selling cars. Like, it's a sale. Okay, whether you're selling a cheeseburger or a set of tires, right, or Salesforce, it's a sale. And if you don't have a plan for your business, you're not going to sell anything, right? Opening your door and having great food does not differentiate you or bring customers to you or make your restaurant any different, right? And because I've done that so long and I care so much about the industry, I have it was easy for me to spin up a plan and say, look, I can help you get more customers and retain them. Because you know what customers of restaurants really like? Being customers of that restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
But you still have to provide outstanding service. And most restaurant operators understand what that means in the store, but they don't understand what that means online. And so that's where I come in. I help bring, basically the virtual hospitality or digital hospitality.
Right, which is, I mean, you make a great point, man. I mean, it's how do you you got to create raving fans, right? If you want to keep people coming back, and obviously, I think during this time, where restaurants are really, I mean, this pandemic has just ridiculously affected the hospitality industry as a whole. Restaurants, events, hotels, the whole thing, and I think with that, I mean, your services, I think, become, to me, much more valuable than ever, because I mean that's really what you're trying to hold on to now at this point is that customer base, especially I mean in our in our area here, the New York, New Jersey area, we're just starting to open up again for at least 25% capacity last as of present, and before that it's been outdoor dining, but that didn't even just start happening till fairly recently. So before that, it was strictly takeout if anybody had a kitchen. So, I mean, for you, how have you been helping your clients and the people to navigate through this? Because it is something that's just been changing and evolving, and it really is a day-to-day thing, right? So it's not like you can think like December or November even at this point, like it's planned for today and then tomorrow. I mean, how are you been helping people?
Well, I'm going to answer the question directly, and then I'm going to dig into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So like the top thing I'm working on, what most of my clients are coming for, and I teach a class on this, and I put a link in the chat on Facebook. I'll put it on LinkedIn later. Nice. But what I've been doing is helping my clients and teaching restaurant operators how to convert guests who would normally use Grubhub or Seamless or DoorDash or whatever to order only from the restaurant afterwards, right? So they place an order once with Postmates, and then the rest of the time they order directly from the restaurant. That's a 20% lift to your bottom line. Most of those third-party delivery service providers outside the pandemic were charging upwards of 30% to take an order and deliver, and I think that's thievery for a number of reasons. First of all, most restaurants operate within a 10 to 20% margin. If there's restaurants watching this, they're like, "Yep, right?" So if you send out an order and you're paying 30% to Grubhub, you lost money. Like, you lost money. Now, in a regular business, the first time you acquire a customer, there has to be some money spent, right? That's what we call cost of acquisition, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is with Seamless or with Grubhub and DoorDash and Uber Eats is they're not your customer, right? The restaurant doesn't get the data. They don't get the person's name. They don't get their phone number. They don't get their email address. They can't remarket to them. So the whole retention thing is out the window, right? That guest is actually a guest of DoorDash or a guest of Uber Eats. They're not a guest of the restaurant.
Makes sense.
DoorDash doesn't care if you order from Joe's Crab Shack or Louis Shanghai. They just want you to use DoorDash or Uber Eats. They don't want you to switch, right? So to me, that's thievery. To me, that's not helping the restaurant. And if you don't have a system to convert somebody from ordering third party to first party to becoming your customer, you're going to fail in business, right? It is a downward spiral. And so the majority of what I've been doing in the pandemic is helping my customers and my clients. And I even teach, I have a free version of this class, is teaching somebody all the steps that you need to know, because it works. Okay. I talked to a pizza joint the other day. They're up 218% in the pandemic. That's ridiculous. That's awesome. I have a client that I work with. They did $100,000 in business last week, right? Wow. I know a steak spot kind of up the road here that's doing $1,000 a day in just steak dinners. Like,
that's amazing.
If you have the system, right? If you do things the right way and you know how to market and you know how to convert, like all the pandemic is doing is forcing a change that was coming anyway, right?
Right.
Prior to the pandemic, and you can go, there's tons of research on this, there was more restaurants on the streets of America than there were mouths that could eat at them, right? We were in a glut, if you will. There were more restaurants than had the ability to be financially successful based on the amount of people in the country and the times they go out to eat. So this was coming, okay? And I don't say that to be rude or angry. I feel terrible for any restaurant that went out of business. I feel bad for anybody that lost their job. I do not hope for loss, right? I'm mournful. However, this was coming, and now there's an opportunity to do everything. But there's not that many less mouths in America, right? People still with money, there's still dining to be done. You just now have to be in service of your community, and there's some changes that need to be made that aren't so difficult to make.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it's if there's anything about the pandemic that I guess you could say is a positive thing to take from all of it is the fact that it has forced change in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, like just take even this format and Zoom conferences, like people were doing it, but like, I mean, I was on Zoom like 3 years ago and we would just use it as normal video conference. It was just a substitute for being on the phone. And, now all of a sudden Zoom's like the vernacular. It's now become one of those things where it's become a verb. Like, I'm going to go Zoom now. It's like, and it's just, we were going that way, but now we're all pushed to adopt technology and integrate it and make it part of our lives in that way. So we can continue on doing business and living and communicating with one another. And you're basically, I mean, what you're saying is a very similar thing. And that's across an industry, looking at it from that way, that, it was something you saw coming as far as the trend and the data goes, but as far as more like maybe crawling and happening, this actually the pandemic coming just like boom, like here it is. Now it's do or die in that way.
Yeah, the opportunity is out there, right? You just have to be, again, I don't want to downplay the negative things that have happened.
Of course.
They are real and they are very sad.
Yes.
But in any adversity, there's always opportunity, right?
Right.
I'm in this position because I got let go from a job in February, right? And I'm grateful because it helped me to launch this agency. So I'm super grateful for that. But, I could have sat here all day long with my thumb up my nose and, being upset and woe is me. And I was like, no, like people are going to need help. I know things. I know places. I know people. I'm going to go help as many restaurants as I can to be as successful as possible because it's out there. The business is there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100%. And, and you say it in a great way too, because, there are so many ways to look at something like this. An opportunity can be taken. And if you're doing opportunity from a really positive, genuine, authentic place, then that's an opportunity that you're taking to help others, as opposed to, someone else who may, come at it from a nefarious place and not see opportunity, but do something really, really negative with it. And from what you're doing and I see the work you're doing and the posts and the content you're creating, you're definitely in a spot where I think you're helping a lot of people who are not necessarily 100% in that mindset, because they're in a survival mode, and it's hard when you're in survival mode and you're desperate and you're panicking and you want things to go. Other things you don't really think about, and you do need to have that other brain that's there to help along and get things going. So I think what you're doing is really great.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I spend a lot of time I actually do a lot of meditative practices. I know that sounds weird.
Not at all.
I journal twice a day. So I get out of bed. I have a note that I read to myself every morning about who I am and who I want to be and who I want to help and what I want to achieve. And then when I'm done, I write down all the things that day, that not what I want to do, but who I want to be. And then at the end of the day, I check back into that list and I write all the things I'm grateful for and proud of. And what's the one problem I want to solve tomorrow? And that alone has brought unbelievable clarity and focus to my life.
That's a great exercise. Actually, I love that. That's actually something because I do a mix of different things, but that's one I actually really like what you just said. I'm gonna steal that one.
The list, man. The list is powerful. So you start in the morning with almost like an affirmation, Here's who I am and here's who I want to be. But you write it in the present tense, like you write your future in the present tense. Then you write a small list of the things you want to be that day. Again, it's not a to do, it's a to be. And at the end of the day, you write a grateful and proud list. And then what's one or two things you want to solve tomorrow?
Love that.
That has been a game changer for me.
That's excellent. That's really great to know. And I thanks for sharing that, because it is very cool. Definitely gonna do that, man.
Yeah, one of the ones on my list is I want to be able to do LinkedIn Live. So you got one on my list. And I guess in a certain way, by you inviting me on, I'm doing it. So
you are, man. Absolutely. Like, we're doing it. We're on. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like I was telling you off air, it's like I applied and I waited and boom, it showed up one day in my inbox right after I'd said, well, I guess I'm not gonna get approved for LinkedIn Live because I hadn't heard anything and I don't have like a gajillion followers. I think the max is like 30,000, I think, on LinkedIn or something like that you can be connected to. And I'm like, well, I have about 2,000, so I don't think I'm making the list. But hey, here I am. And so, but I'm glad I have it, and I could, bring people like you on, and and basically just expand the mission of why I started doing this in the first place, which was to interview the people I know and give them a platform to talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're helping others. Because that's really, honestly, that's the whole reason why I started doing this, and it was called My LinkedIn Friends. I'm now calling it LinkedIn Live, and I'm able to also take this and use it as a podcast as well, so I can reuse it in multiple arenas, and it just gives everybody who I'm working with more exposure to more reach that way, and hopefully people want to connect with you and do business with you, man. That's the goal.
Yeah, I started a podcast in the middle of this as well. So
I was just gonna ask you about that. So thank you for the great lead-in. But yes, I actually just subscribed to it on Podbean, and so talk about that podcast, because I've listened to it. I've listened to a few episodes, and I think it's really cool, and there's a lot of great information there. But so why don't you tell everybody about the podcast?
Sure, thank you. So it's called the Restaurant Executive Mastery Podcast. And I co-host it with inspirational thought leader John Shaw. He's incredible. He's actually my coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so inspired. And he and I talk. He's my coach. We talk every week. And one day I was like, "You're going to do a podcast with me." And he was like, "That sounds great." And I was like, "John, I'm not joking. Like, we're going to do a podcast." And he was like, "Okay, what are we doing a podcast on?" So our podcast, it's unique and it's different for a reason. So we interview C-suite executives and founders of multi-location restaurants and talk to them about their success model, their mindset, and their transformational practices, right? So we don't talk about like, hey, what technology did you use to do this, blah, 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 which I care about. But we ask them like, how do you think, right? How do you lead? How do you transform? And so it's intended to be a very sub-niche podcast for a very sub-niche amount of people. But like, if you want to know what the executive leaders and founders of multi-locational brands do on a daily basis for their own success and the mindset of their team, that's your podcast, the Restaurant Executive Mastery Podcast. And we've talked to the CEO of Fuddruckers and Lubies. We talked to Greg, the founder of Gregory's Coffee. We've talked to the CEO of Pete Harry's. We talked to Robert Reno from Five Napkin. Like, we've got some really interesting, unique guests. Then we threw a couple of left-ringers in there, like Donald Burns, the restaurant coach, and Nabil, the founder of Lunchbox. But the whole idea is like, we want to talk to people who are like thinking above the plane, right? When you listen to successful people and the practices they do, even if you walk away with a 1% difference to your life, you're going to be above the competition. And so the podcast is intended to give you insights into really successful people and how you can model your life the same way. It's fun.
Yeah, and I do enjoy listening to it because, for me, like, I'm not a restaurant guy, but the thing is I'm in business, and hearing those stories and hearing what everybody has to say, that stuff transcends no matter what industry you're in, and listening to those stories. And that's the thing I like about it too, is that, like you said, it's not really about, this software, that software, but it's about the authentic, real story. Because listen, all business starts with is an idea, right? And then how do you carry that idea and you follow through, and it's met with nothing but struggle and adversity. It's just a giant problem solving puzzle. And I love hearing the stories of how people are able to get around those and get around the obstacles, and they have that positive mental attitude about it, because that's the big difference there. And hearing those stories are great.
Yeah, there's fun. I mean, they're chock full of information. We just did one recently with. Thank you, Aiden. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We just talked to James Walker, who's the senior vice president of restaurants for Nathan's Famous, and he came in like less than a year and a half, basically revamped the whole brand, new logo, new colors, new menu, and like upgraded everything. That's an unbelievable amount of work and change to do in a very short time, and he did it pre-pandemic, and it's been incredible. And we asked him, like, how does somebody walk into a brand that's 100 years old and be like, we're changing everything? I'm dramatizing, but you know what he said?
What?
He went to Nathan's stores and sat in the lobby and talked to customers. I was like, that's incredible. Like, I think your impression, maybe not you, I mean the general you, thinks of somebody like that's that high up, like they basically walk into a boardroom and they have a PowerPoint and some spreadsheets and high level talk, blah, blah. Nope, James spent 90 days talking to customers. I was like, that's awesome. Like, that is putting the guest first. And those are the types of conversations that we pull out on that podcast.
Yeah, it's definitely a great podcast, and I urge anybody listening to this to go out and subscribe to it. So, Rev, what's the name again, and where can people hear it?
It's Restaurant Executive Mastery Podcast. And when we're done, I'll put a link in the chat so everybody can easily find it. But if you Google that, it's Restaurant Executive Mastery Podcast. You see this stupid face holding a hamburger next to a really handsome guy in a suit? That's us.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, it really is a wonderful podcast, and I urge everybody out there to check it out. And like I said, if you're even not in the restaurant industry and just want to hear great stories from some strong thought leaders, business people, then I urge you guys to check that out. So we're coming down to the wire here, and I do want to ask two quick things. One is, I was always interested in this. How did you make the leap from music to this? I mean, was the bar the transition to that? Because we were in touch with each other for a while, and then we lost touch, and then, like I said, we sort of, our paths kind of crossed again and all that. But I'd love to understand, like, how you made that jump.
So the story goes like this. I was managing a couple bands, namely like Thursday, Shadows Fall, Murder by Death, Stretch Arms, bands we both know and love.
Right.
MySpace and Twitter were like a thing, like a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was calling the bands on the road to like check up, like, how was the show last night? Did you sell merch? Whatever. And I'd be like, oh, did you update your MySpace page? And my bands were like, what is the internet? I'm dramatizing again. But they were kind of like, they didn't see the same value in it that I did, right? And finally, they started to agree, like, yeah, that makes sense. We should do it, especially the Thursday guys were all about it. And the Shadows Fall guys started getting to it. But anyway, I would call them and I'd be like, hey, did you write your MySpace update? And if you remember a MySpace update, it was like 4 sentences, right? Yep. Like, you could type that out in your sleep. And they'd be like, no, we were super busy. And I was like, BS. And I was like, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to go start a blog and a social media thing and blah, blah, and I'm going to out-content you. And I'm still going to run your business and all the other band's business and my business and blah, blah, and I'm going to show you that you can make social media work. And that's when I started burgerconquest.com, and I started blogging about hamburgers. It was actually a challenge to my artists to show them how easy it was to build a social media presence. And I didn't have Grammy nominations, right? I didn't have #1 video as an MTV2. I was like, I'm going to show you. And that blog kind of like really exploded. It became one of the top 3 hamburger blogs in the world, and it changed my life unbelievable amounts. And so I started like putting all this content, and I started getting restaurant operators calling me and seeing what I was doing for the bands and seeing the blog and be like, hey, could you do that for my restaurant? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, could I apply this like music growth idea for like taking a baby band to, top of the charts?
Right.
And apply it to like a hamburger spot. And I was like, oh, that could be fun. So that was kind of happening. I then bought the bar, right? I had Idle Hands Bar. And I've always loved hospitality. And then, Chris, I kid you not, this is a true story.
Uh-huh.
I was in my office one day. My revenue was going down and down and down and down. The music industry had been smacked by the download thing really, really hard. Budgets were getting pulled everywhere. It's getting harder and harder to sell. I lost my funding. Like, I was just at a point where I was like super frustrated. And I called one of my bands. And I said, how was the show last night? Okay. Now, this is what I want to hear. We sold X amount of tickets. We did Y amount of merchandise. Song number 3 was a massive hit. Somebody did this funny thing about like, I want to report.
Right.
Okay. Because I want you, this is 5 minutes of time to put me in the headset of what's happening in your business so that I can help direct you. And this is actually the reply I got. Yeah, you know those t-shirts that we got shipped this week? Yes. We still don't like the color of red in that one thing on the back. And I was like, you get like 10 minutes with me a day and I'm in charge of your business, right? And you're out on the road like making money. And I'm asking you about your business and you want to complain about the red in the back of your t-shirt. And I literally, because I'm not kidding, I put the phone down and I said, I can't do this anymore. I literally can't do this anymore.
Right.
My ability to teach musicians to be successful business people is going down, right? It's not their fault. It's mine. I'm not made for this business anymore. Right. And I closed shop the next day. I walked in, I told my employees, I said, guys, I'm closing the business. I'm sorry. If you want to manage the bands, I'll hand them to you. But like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I called all my bands and I was like, you're free of your contracts. Send me an address. I'll send you all your files, your everything. I'm done. Like I literally just put my hands up and was like, I am unable to serve you in a way that's beneficial and I'm going to leave. And that was it. That was it. I called Thrillist the next day. I was like, you need to hire me. I was like, I can build you the VIP version of Groupon. And they were like, okay.
All right.
And they hired me and that was it. And I never looked back. And I love all those bands and I love all that time in the music business. And it was super fun. And, I met great people like you. I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have, this Blink-182 thing on the wall here.
Right.
I loved it, but it was time. It was time.
Yeah.
Now my friends in the music business will go, oh, what's the restaurant business like? And my first answer is, well, you can't download a cheeseburger, so that's an improvement. And my other answer is like, unlike an album, if you really like a cocktail, you'll buy a second version. So
That's true. That's true. That's true, man. That's a good way. That's a great way of putting it. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, man. Thank you. Because honestly, I did not know how you got in, and I remember the Burger Conquest blog. I remember that being a thing then, and but I didn't realize that was how the whole thing started. So that's awesome, man. I love that story.
My ability to teach and like, look, I'm a Myers-Briggs guy. I'm an ENFJ. Right. That's Dumbledore for those who do not know the Myers-Briggs score. Yeah. I'm a teacher, right? I thrive when I'm helping other people learn stuff. And I was not learning enough and I was not helping other people learn enough. And I was like, it's time to go.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. So, man, before we wrap up, I mean, I've got
questions.
Huh?
There is questions. Okay.
There is. This is going to be the next question. No, this is the next question. So before we wrap up, one last question, and I have to ask. So, I mean, what are, if you had a list of burgers, and I'm not going to have you name 10 or 20, but man, give me your top 3 or something like that. Like, I know you have your favorites as far as places that you've had burgers or had the best, or what your favorite type of burger. I mean, I'll let you answer that however you want, but I'm like Jones in the know, because even after the Utah story, that was an interesting story in itself. But
so the most unfair question you could ever ask me is, what's your favorite insert food item? Because I literally do not have one. That would be so unfair to all the food I love.
Well, then I would say, what are the most memorable?
I'll tell you this, though. I used to actually have an answer for this question. I used to have a favorite burger, okay? And it was a place called Rub Barbecue. I don't know if you ever went to Rub, 23rd and 7th in Manhattan.
No, I've never been there.
The Scott and Andrew that ran that place, they were like food geniuses. And they had like a really good traditional barbecue spot. And on Monday nights from 6 p.m. till they ran out, 20 hamburgers. That's it. And every week they did a different interpretation. So basically the patty was kind of the same each week, and then they changed like how they made it. And they were trying to feature regional burgers, essentially taking George Motz's Hamburger America book and doing it as burgers.
Right.
They still won't tell me. So they were grinding their own burger, right? And I kind of sort of figured out what the blend was. And they would cook it a la plancha. So they would take their flat top and they'd get it up to 600 degrees, which is insane amounts of heat. And they would take like a 4-ounce patty and they basically pop it on when it was super hot, salt and pepper. And it would like basically crust the outside. 30 seconds, they'd flip it, crusty outside, and they pull it. So you get this 4-ounce patty that was basically like not borderline crunchy on the outside, medium rare in the middle, and then every week was a different build. Fried onion burger, the goober burger, peanut butter and jelly burger, Italian, but and they nailed every single one. And that was actually the burger that made me want to get into doing events in social media. And that was the first restaurant that called me and said, "Can you help us?" And they closed. Somebody was at Jay-Z's 40/40 Club. I'm sorry, not there. So Hurricane Sandy happened, right? And basically 23rd Street was from there south, the city turned off. And for 7 days they were without business, and they were like, how are we going to recover from this, right? They finally turned the lights back on. They start getting business again. And some nimnal who was partying at the 40/40 Club got in a Jeep, drunk, and drove through the front door to Rub like a block away. And Andrew and Scott were like, screw this, we're out of here. They literally they left the city. Andrew went and like managed the governor's mansion at the end of Long Island for 4 years. And then he and Scott moved out like way out into the mountains, way out in the mountains of Denver, like 6 hours from Denver out in the mountains. And they bought a honky-tonk bar in a town of population 1,600, right? Like, you can't get smaller.
Holy smokes.
One day, years later, I was in Denver, and I called Andrew, and I was like, it's Rev. I'm coming. And he's like, we can still make the burger. And I was like, yes! So I literally 6 hours out into the woods, and then this little honky-tonk bar in this town of 1,600 people. Literally, I walked in, and half the population's having a beer. And the burger was not on the menu, but they made it for me, and it was not the same, and I was very upset. So my favorite burger literally does not exist anymore.
Well, that is a great answer, man, because the whole story connected with it was excellent. So, well, thank you for any kind of an answer on that one. I know it was unfair, but I just
and listen,
I'm ready to take notes.
So my other more direct answer of something you get, I love a traditional, correctly done slider, like 2 to 3 ounces of fresh ground beef smashed on a griddle, steam cooked with steamed onions, cheese, and a white squishy bun. Man, I'll eat 100 of those every day.
Man, the steaming, that's the key. That is the key. You really get a nice tasty slider that way. Yeah, the steamed onions, you got to do it that way.
Good. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I like all burgers, but if I walk into a new town and somebody's like, "Oh, they're doing traditional sliders," my ears perk up like a dog at dinner time. Like you're ringing the bell, and I'm like,
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Absolutely. Cool. So hey, man, before we wrap up here, do you want to give out your contact information? How can people connect with you? Like website, email? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I monitor all of them, so whichever is your favorite, hit me on it. And there's a reason why I have @REV Ciancio as my screen name here, because that's my screen name on every profile, and people can't pronounce it or spell it, so it's right in front of you, right there, REV Ciancio.
Awesome.
And if you're like,
awesome.
And if you're listening to this and you're not watching it, and you still don't know how to spell REV Ciancio, I run the world's largest French fry themed Instagram account. It's got almost 400,000 followers. It's called Fun with Fries. So if you really like French fries, go follow that account. And there's a REV Ciancio link in the front there. So nice. There you go.
I'm gonna follow that account, man. That's awesome. I didn't even know about the Fun with Fries thing. That's great.
Yeah, that started as a dare. And somebody's like, "This is the dumbest idea ever," and I was like, "No, it's not." And years later, I'm one of the only paid French fry ambassadors in the world. So like,
hey. That is awesome. I'm totally following that because I had no idea. So that's very good. And I love fries. So
don't we
better. Well, anyway, man, listen, I want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today and talking with me and hanging out. And, this was a great time, great conversation. And I hope that for anybody who is watching this or listening to this, got a lot of value out of this. And please, I urge you all, if you want to connect with Dave, and Rev, if you want to connect with Rev, definitely connect with them on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Follow Fun with Fries. Do it all, and we'll have some stuff in the show notes as well, so you'll be able to connect with them at all those links too. So, all right. So thank you guys once again for watching and listening to Rocket Live, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.